So after attacking Tucker Carlson, Ben Shapiro has decided to aim his pistol at Jason Whitlock.
What is it? Seriously, like, spell it out for me. I'd like you to spell it out. What is the conspiracy theory that leads people to somehow draw a morally ambiguous line here? Explain it to me in short words.
I'm going to say this very slowly, in small words, hopefully. I don't know a lot of big words.
Before we start this video, guys, I want you to know something right now. It is very important, obviously, to be very, very much aware of the audience that you have. And sometimes, some of us actually have a tendency to break that rule from time to time. Now, the past week, I've basically been posting nothing except the Israel-Gaza situation, even though I really only planned on doing maybe like one or two videos on the situation. But I figured, you know what, might as well go ahead and end the week on this right here. You know, you might as well go ahead and talk about it. And of course, I've talked about Shapiro in like the last couple of videos. The thing about Andrew Tate, where I said that he was correct, and I also said that he was wrong too at the exact same time. The exact same way that I felt that Andrew Tate was also correct, but also wrong, because Andrew Tate was basically calling for a truce 3 days after he had been screaming Allah Akbar and Allah demands justice, while Hamas was on the offensive. Then you get someone like Jason Whitlock. And of course, you know, I talked about Tucker Carlson too, and how it is that Tucker Carlson, for the most part, has always been somebody who doesn't like the idea of stupid wars. Tucker Carlson is one of the very, very few people out there that's actually America first. He's an actual paleo-conservative. He does believe in helping out allies, but he does not believe in helping out allies under very, very bad pretenses. Now, I've given you guys my thoughts on this. I think maybe what we should do is obviously have 2 fleets out there, one in the Mediterranean, one in Iran, so that way Iran does not fully get themselves involved in this situation. But I'm not okay with sending troops to Israel right at this moment in time. Okay, I've always had a stance of... my stance has always been this right here. Let Israel take care of the situation if God actually wants it, depending on the circumstance. That's always been me. Because America, for whatever reason, we have this tendency historically to not allow Israel to actually get rid of their enemies. Hezbollah and Hamas have been attacking that region for years. Lebanon, of course, has always had its issues. Egypt has issues. And, of course, people have been asking a lot of questions, especially given the nature of the fact that Egypt has claimed that they gave Israel a heads up, and yet Israel is saying, no, that's not the case. And then all of a sudden you go on Twitter and you've got all this online smoke. You got people from the right. You got people from the left, one of which I've been going after a lot in these videos, decided to share a video of... let's just say he was saying that Israeli jets were firing white phosphorus onto a building, which I can go ahead and tell you right now that I knew from watching the video that that was a load of crap. If anything, it looked like it was smoke grenades that were being popped off, more than likely from a helicopter, not an actual plane. The reason why you would do that is so that way you could blind the enemy, so that way they can't see you, they can't fire upon you, but then you can use your infrared. And of course, like I said before, it would more likely be coming from a helicopter and not an actual plane, because jets are pretty freaking fast. I just figured I'd go ahead and throw that out there. Just an example of what I'm talking about. I'll give you a couple more examples here in a second before we get to this. Another reason why that this right here would happen is because you don't throw white phosphorus at an actual building. You throw white phosphorus in an area where maybe there's like some woods or some trees or whatnot. It's a psychological weapon. Yes, it's extremely dangerous. If it hits you, you pretty much have to cut that limb off or whatever, because it's white phosphorus. It, quite frankly, does not stop burning. Okay. The same content creator, the same person on Twitter, also had this other thing where he decided he wanted to share a photo saying, this right here is not IDF. They're not going in. This right here looks like Israeli cops. It's like cops are on the ground. Not realizing that where Hamas attacked at was actually on the border of where they were at in Israel. So therefore, the police officers would probably be the first people on scene to actually fight back. Common sense. Or how about the fact that everybody in Israel, of course, has actually pulled time in the military? It's mandatory. Just some common sense stuff that people obviously did not research on. I mean, I'm showing you guys some of these tweets. And of course, you've also got this one guy, Jake Shields, who decided to say that, well, Israel is treating their prisoners bad because they stripped them down to their underwear. There's a reason for that. You would strip them down to their underwear because people in Palestine, you know, people in Gaza, people in Syria, people in Iraq, Iran, Muslims as a whole, radical Islam, not all Muslims, just radical Islam, they're known to use children, of course, as like human shields. And one of the things that they love to do is they love to strap bombs to themselves before they run in there and blow you up. I mean, these people believe if they kill you in combat that they just took out an infidel, that they automatically go to heaven and they get 72 virgins, when in reality they're just going to be going to hell. The only thing that's going to be lost is their, let's just say they won't be anal retentive for too much longer. I'll just leave it at that there. But after a while, when you hear somebody continue to pound the drum saying, we need to get involved, we need to get involved, we need to call this out over and over and over again, it feels like maybe what you're doing is you might be shooting from the hip just a little bit too much. And I've explained to you guys on several occasions that about 99% of the time I agree with what Shapiro says on the issues. I normally agree with Matt Walsh a lot of the time what he says, but I do not like the Daily Wire because it seems to me like the Daily Wire has always been out of touch with the common, average, ordinary conservative. And there have been several examples of this right here, which I'll show you here in a second. But Jason Whitlock is kind of like new to conservatism. He's never really voted. He's never really and truly been politically activated. He's never been involved. He's, for the most part, a sports guy. And yes, he's got some controversies of his own. But I don't think it's a good idea to just up and just start throwing haymakers at somebody and asking them questions, especially when a person is new like this and trying to humiliate them, as I will show you here.
Clip of Ben Shapiro addressing me.
Jason Whitlock, for some odd reason, who, again, I like Jason. I know Jason. I like a lot of his work. Jason has decided that it's important to sound off to me generally and say, well, you know what? You have to understand why people are not so exercised about babies being killed in their beds, in their room. I mean, after all, there have been a lot of conspiracy theories out there. Yeah, I know. What's the conspiracy theory to which you're referring right now that people should give credence? What is it? Seriously, spell it out for me. I'd like you to spell it out. What is the conspiracy theory that leads people to somehow draw a morally ambiguous line here? Explain it to me in short words.
I'm going to say this very slowly, in small words, hopefully. I don't know a lot of big words. I believe, and everybody I know believes, that Hamas committed an atrocity against Israel. No one is in denial of that. And how the conspiracy plays into this, though, is that atrocities happen. JFK getting shot in broad daylight in Dallas in 1963. That was an atrocity. That happened. There is a conspiracy in many people's minds, and I believe in rational people's mind, about why it happened, who was involved, who allowed it to happen.
Jason is just simply asking some questions, okay? He just simply wants some additional information. I understand the fog of war. I mean, dude, I'm a freaking war veteran. I've been to Iraq twice, okay? I joined the Marines in November 2003, okay? And Jason actually has some concerns, and I understand them. And while I'm a little bit more of the process that we need to help Israel, of course, I don't want us to help Ukraine out. I'm getting sick and tired of helping that nation out because it's not an ally, okay? Israel is. And obviously, as a Christian, I'm obviously going to have some connection here, of course, to Israel. Yes, I think we should help out. I don't want the judgment of the Lord coming to us. Granted, somebody's probably going to make fun of me in the comment section, but that's okay. I can deal with the leftist dribble. But the thing is this right here. Whitlock is just simply asking some questions. Now, I'm not going to get into the whole conspiracy thing or whatnot, but it's almost like Ben is trying to tell people, you know, look, man, my word is good. My word is just good. You know, we should just do it. I say, nah. That's what Ben Shapiro really actually reminds me of. It's almost like he's a squeaky male voice Karen. I can't come up with the best insults in the world for him. I mean, like I said, I agree with you 99% of the time, buddy, but holy crap, it just seems to me like you're just trying to cram something down everybody's throats. Whitlock's never really and truly, you know, been the type of guy to really and truly assert his political beliefs. It wasn't until right around 2018, 2019 that he began to really and truly get concerned. He has said this on multiple occasions. He used to tell Tucker Carlson, and of course, after the election was over with, he worked at Outkick for a little bit. It didn't end on good terms, and then eventually he got on with the Blaze, as you guys saw earlier. And of course, he's gotten more and more conservative. Basically, the thing about Jason Whitlock is that he cares a lot more about masculinity, where men are going, of course, than he, for the most part, is a Trump guy. He's had Bryson Gray on several occasions. If there's somebody in the world that I really and truly don't like, is Bryson Gray. Bryson Gray took advantage of the whole Make America Great Again grift right after Trump got elected. I don't even think he even voted in 2016. He supported the man. Then he goes on television. Jason Whitlock's show in particular, and his Twitter feed is absolutely ridiculous. He bashes the man constantly. I'm not saying you can't critique him. Of course, I criticize him. I didn't like the bump stock ban, even though I knew it was going to get struck down. I didn't like the inflection of red flag laws that, quite frankly, was being discussed. I didn't like that, and I didn't like his hires. I'm not some Trump loyalist, even though I prefer him to all the other Republican candidates, which we'll talk about here in a second too, because Ben's obviously got his fingers in that little pie too. But still at the same exact time, Bryson Gray is a great example of what we like to call a grifter. He's somebody who went on Whitlock's show every day and bashes the man and then turns right back around and sells the man's merch on his website. It's just who the hell he is. And people are obviously getting tired of certain personalities. They want somebody to just ask questions. And of course, I think you should. Now, I want to go ahead and say this right here, right now, before we look at the rest of this clip, before we get going further in this video. If you never served in the military, and you have an online presence. Now, granted, I understand that there are people in my audience, of course, that did not pull time. That is fine. I love you all to death for subscribing. This is not geared at you. It is not geared at you. I want to make it perfectly clear. It's not geared at you. I'm talking about the Twitter personalities, the people that I've called out, people on the left, people on the right, those who are sharing these videos and trying to input their own spin on things. I don't think you should be commenting on what is clearly a military situation until the situation is 100% over with. It's called the fog of war. The first casualty of war is always truth. Let's watch some more of this. I'll come back on the other end and provide more commentary and more examples of what I mean.
Where 2 airplanes flew into the World Trade Center. No one's in denial of that. People like myself believe, hey man, I need a better explanation of why this happened, how they snuck into our country, how there were all these intelligence collapses, and then I need an explanation on why did we pass the Patriot Act? Why did we involve ourselves in a 20-year war in Iraq and Afghanistan? Why did those things happen? And did someone perhaps allow the atrocities to happen, look the other way when the atrocities happened so that they could engage in a 20-year war in the Middle East, so that they could keep the war machine going? And so my question that I have every right to ask, and other Americans have every right to ask, is like, how, with Mossad and the CIA and all the money we spend and all the money, all the aid and money that flies back and forth and intelligence that flies back and forth between Israel and the United States, how did people parachute in and slaughter a bunch of people? Who fell asleep at the wheel? And will they use this atrocity to take more freedoms and rights away from us while igniting another global conflict, another war for America to be involved in?
Whitlock is simply frustrated because you see these cell phones that we have all have internet access. A lot of us have downloaded X, formerly Twitter. We have Facebook, we have YouTube, we have Rumble, we have a lot of things that, quite frankly, you can you can download and get information at. Personally, Ground News is probably the best one. I'm not saying that because I'm advertising for Ground News or anything, so I haven't gotten a sponsor yet. The channel's not big enough, so please don't beat me up in the comment section, even though if you try to beat me up in the comment section, I can guarantee I'll kick your ass in one way or another. But still, at the same exact time, the thing is this right here. It just seems to me like Jason Whitlock is a little bit concerned that disinformation could kind of make us look bad, and maybe we should ask some questions, maybe not speak so fast, whereas Shapiro, on the other hand, has obviously taken the authoritative approach of, you know what, I'm right. That's kind of what he does, because his facial expressions do that. I'm sorry, I mean, I'm not the funniest guy in the world, but holy crap, this is what Ben Shapiro does. And in the previous video, I already mentioned how it was that Ben was talking about all those letters he was getting, all those emails he was getting from doctors who were Jewish, and they're volunteering their services to go to Israel. Ben, why don't you do that? But then again, at the same time, he's only like 5'2" and weighs like 120 pounds. It would be really funny to see little Ben Shapiro walking around in a Kevlar. I know I'm kind of a jerk, but still at the same exact time, with them teeny-weeny arms and them teeny-weeny legs. I mean, let's let the nature boy say it.
Them teeny-weeny arms and those skinny-weeny legs. And that so turkey looking neck.
Whitlock did have a guest on his show, and they discussed this a little bit further. Okay, and I'll get back to Ben here in a second. Whitlock, in my opinion, is somebody who, like I said before, I think he just needs a little bit more time to see the situation, go through it. He's doing the right thing. He's just simply asking questions. We all want to. Look, I kind of already know the truth mostly through experience of how things operate. Unlike the Twitter grifters that I've been mentioning all week who are just sharing BS and just throwing their own little crap in every little story without actually knowing anything, Whitlock's just a guy who's just simply asking questions. And he had a great Twitter thread, which I'll link in the description box. I'll play it right here in the cutaway if you guys want to pause the video and read it. I don't read things verbatim here because the way I edit things, of course, that's probably going to change sometime next year, especially if I start doing video essays. But still at the same exact time, I kind of understand why Whitlock is a little bit concerned.
On what triggered me, and I don't want to drag you into the back and forth between Ben Shapiro and I, but I just want to speak honestly because you've helped me out here. What triggers me is outrage, social media outrage, because I've seen that outrage used against us and used to propel us to make bad decisions.
Bad decisions,
so
exactly.
One of the strategies, what I'm going to reach out to Ben and say this to him personally, and I'll say it to you here, is I was watching Ben's Twitter feed and I'm seeing so much outrage that it's off-putting to me. And I get why he's outraged. I mean, again, the connections he has to Israel, I'm sure he's got friends and family there. I get it. But it's bad strategy because it's off-putting to me because I'm like, whenever I see outrage, normally there is some kind of trap door that they're going to spring on me. And so I'm literally going to write Ben and say, hey, don't curse. Let's move away from outrage and just explain because you're giving me an explanation. And if you come to me with an explanation removed of outrage, now, because that's where we have to move as men. Too much of our societies, in my view, has become too emotional. And that's all I'm really saying. Let's don't make an emotional decision. Let's don't make a decision out of outrage. Bring me an explanation. And now I'm like, okay, this is from a source I trust who's connected to Netanyahu in Israel, loves America. But when the outrage was just off-putting to me, and I saw it from a lot of different places. And
Whitlock is like, out of the way here, let's go ahead and address some other things, okay? Because it does, in fact, pertain to this. If you watch the video that I did on the Ben Shapiro, Tucker Carlson little beef call out that I released on Friday, there was a certain section towards the end of that video that I was talking about. Apparently, there's this situation where the DeSantis campaign has decided to hop on some comments that Donald Trump made. He criticized Benjamin Netanyahu, basically said that I'm showing you guys some of the tweets right here. And of course, thank God Viva Fry was there to kind of call this out because obviously this is not exactly what the Donald said. Now, guys, I could play for you the clip that came from the DeSantis War Room, which, by the way, that campaign is an absolute joke. I was correct about that from the very start. Those people were incompetent. I mean, they're actually more incompetent than the Democrats are. That's actually weird I'm saying that. But the way they tried to frame it was to say that Trump had suddenly turned into anti-Israel. Kind of like the same way they said he was like anti-abortion, even though not anti-abortion, but he was pro-abortion, even though the guy got Roe v. Wade overturned. And also at the exact time, he was most pro-Israel president in American history, including at the same time also getting the embassy moved from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, the actual true capital of Israel. And, I could play you guys that clip, but instead I want to choose to play the full clip for you guys so that way you guys can comment on it and tell me what you guys think. But I didn't hear any anti-Israeli sentiment here. If anything, it sounded more to me like he was maybe critiquing the leadership there.
Money, but nothing compared to the hundreds of billions of dollars that Biden allowed them to make in oil and other things. Hundreds of billions. They became a rich nation in 3 years. That's why they're doing this. They have so much money. They don't know what to do with it. They had no money. They were broke. And then there was the inevitable attack 4 days later, which I predicted. And then 2 nights ago, I read all of Biden's security people. Can you imagine? National defense people. And they said, gee, I hope Hezbollah doesn't attack from the north because that's the most vulnerable spot. I said, wait a minute. Hezbollah is very smart. They're all very smart. The press doesn't like when they say it. I said that President Xi of China, 1.4 billion people, he controls it with an iron fist. I said, he's a very smart man. They killed me the next day. I said he was smart. What am I going to say? But Hezbollah, they're very smart. And they have a national defense minister or somebody saying, I hope Hezbollah doesn't attack us from the north. So the following morning they attacked. They might not have been doing it, but if you listen to this jerk, you would attack from the north because he said that's our weak spot. Whoever heard of officials saying on television that they hope the enemy doesn't attack in a certain area? Now, unless it's a con job. But you know what a con job is? You're waiting there ready. You want them if you want them, but they weren't ready. They weren't ready. You know, say what you want. Israel was not ready. This was a big surprise. This was a terrible thing that happened. They weren't ready. But if you wanted them to attack because you've got 1 million people there with guns and you're going to blast the hell, then you do exactly, but they didn't have that. They didn't have that. Biden's national security advisor, Jake Sullivan, even bragged just days before the attack that the Middle East seems to be quite quiet. That was good. They really.
It's funny too because Shapiro would also comment and clap back on this today without actually clapping back to the full comment. I would play what he said, but then again, at the same time, I'm pretty sure you guys are already. I mean, I'm already. My brain's already racked enough with the squeakiness from teeny-weeny arms and teeny-weeny legs. And all the pushing of things. I'm much more rational in this. And, to go on top of this to make matters worse. I mean, well, not really worse, but it just makes it funnier that Shapiro said this the other day.
Do I think that Biden is at least partially responsible for the encouragement of Iran toward these sorts of moves? Absolutely. I think his weakness on Iran has been absolutely devastating for the region. Listen, I wish President Trump were still president.
I don't want to attack the man, Ben, because quite frankly, the man has been 100% correct on everything. Go back to what he said earlier. I called this. I said this was probably going to happen. They got $6 billion. They've been waiting on this. They've been planning all this since we withdrew from Afghanistan. He may not have said that there too. But the only thing the man is doing is simply saying, look, he's a dictator talking about Xi Jinping, but obviously he's got his people in line. Now, I'm not saying that Trump is like that. I'm just saying you got to give the man credit where credit's due. That's what it sounds like to me. So I didn't hear any anti-Israel sentiment. But of course, the DeSantis War Room account, they got absolutely ratioed for even posting that because most people who are engaged actually understand that there's such thing called context. And quite frankly, when you take something out of context, by the way, the Biden campaign is sharing those tweets that DeSantis has, which makes you almost think that maybe DeSantis maybe unintentionally or very much intentionally trying to sabotage the Lydian GOP nominee, who, by the way, is winning by a massive amount. However, let me go ahead and say this before I close the video, because this right here is where these people are screwing up. It's October 2023. Maybe if you had him saying this and you matched it up properly in October 2024, it would work, but it obviously is not going to work because now the guy's got like a year to kind of like get the full truth out there, put it in his ads, continue to rally on it, all that type of good stuff there. So really just incompetence from both sides here. With that right there being said, guys, I'm going to go ahead and close this video out now. This is going to be the second video of the day. I'm going to try to get a third video out tomorrow. I said this is probably going to be a very, very busy weekend. There's also a couple more videos I'm trying to get released. One of them, of course, is on the situation involving why it is that people are questioning whether the United States has turned into Rome. There's also another video that I wanted to post again on this situation, not so much pertaining to the Israel war itself, but more along the lines of comparing all the bad takes to try to explain to people that, the youth of America is not ready for conflict. I just have a very, very bad feeling that when gunfire goes off and when people are getting shot, they'll probably stream their own deaths. That's how stupid we are as a society, both right and left. Guys, make sure you guys hit that like button. Make sure you guys subscribe. Make sure you guys share the video, sign up in the comment section. I would love to get you guys' thoughts on this, and I'll see you guys later.